Um, I want to go over just a few things, and I know I only have a little bit of time, about field work, and particularly in terms of practicum and field studies. So again, just as a reminder, practicum, EDCG 528, and field studies, EDCG 535, are taken towards the end of your program, synthesizing what you've learned in the program and applying it into practice. That's the goal. Practicum, the 528 class, meets 8 times during the semester. Field studies, typically taken in either your fall or spring of your last year, only meets 4 times during the semester. Your university supervisor, who is the faculty member of your class, will do 1 site visit during the practicum class and 2 site visits during the field studies class. And typically a site visit requires the university supervisor to come out to your site, and that person will observe you at work. So that means that they are watching you do a presentation, a training session, supervising a staff meeting, doing individual advising or counseling session, or facilitating a group counseling session. It also requires a meeting between the site supervisor, the university supervisor, and yourself to check in on how things are going and to discuss your goals as a fieldwork student. So typically each field studies or practicum site visit takes approximately 90 minutes. So usually it's about an hour and a half that we reserve of time at your site. I want to encourage you to bookmark the following website. So I've tried to share on the screen here the GSOE website, and specifically I want you to become familiar, very closely and intimately familiar, with the resources link on the right-hand side. And so if you click on that, it's going to pop up the resources for students page. And I specifically want you to make sure that every single time you hit the Counselor Ed tab in purple in the middle, and that's going to pop up different student resources for you. But specifically, there's, in the first piece here, fieldwork process. There's a presentation that Professor Rowley's put together that sort of gives a little bit of an overview of fieldwork. There's also additional information here in terms of what you need to sort of think about moving forward, and some of the processes that we have delineated in terms of the different steps that you need to take. But then specifically, I want to make sure that you focus on all of the materials that are under the section called College Student Personnel Candidates. So your application for fieldwork link is here. The fieldwork handbook is here in both a Word and a PDF format. And then all of the forms that are required are also listed here. So one of the things that's common error is that many students will sort of scroll and see the PPS, or they'll see application for fieldwork, but it's the wrong section. So make sure that when you're on this page, you're pulling forms directly under the section that's for college student personnel. You don't want to have the wrong form and have to redo it. So just make sure that you're looking at that carefully. Additionally, for students planning on doing practicum this spring, as my email said that came out just earlier this week, your applications are due on or before December 1st. For students planning on doing practicum in the summer, your applications are due on or before May 1st. Students doing 8-semester track for the program typically will take practicum in the summer. Students trying to accelerate their program or lighten their final semester because they might be doing thesis class typically try to take practicum in the spring. But if you take practicum in the spring, that means that you're taking 3 classes rather than just 2. So keep in mind what your schedule looks like, both at work, school, other commitments, before you make that decision. But ultimately, practicum will be offered in the spring. And again, the hope is that we have to have 8 students typically for a class to make, or to be able to sort of go forward. So it just will depend on that. That doesn't mean that it won't necessarily go. And if we have less than 8, I'll do my best to advocate that we're still able to run the class, but I can't guarantee anything from, because that's a decision above me as department chair. So that would be a dean and a provost conversation that I would need to have. Can I get a rough estimate of how many of you think that you might do practicum this spring? Can I see a show of hands? And can somebody tally that up for me quickly in the class?
Like of them.
Okay, great. Perfect. Thanks.
We'll pin a few people.
Okay. So as you think about this, your site needs to be at a 2-year or a 4-year college or university. There's no way out of that. You can't do a nonprofit or anything that's sort of connected. It has to be at a college or university. Additionally, you have to do your practicum at a different site from your field studies course. So as you think about sort of where you want to be, you'll want to make sure that you have a site that has a high degree of contact with students. You shouldn't be doing an internship that's like clerical work, right? That's not what we're looking for. And doing observations of counselors the entire time where you're just watching somebody do the job is not sufficient either. So you'll want to really ask about that when interviewing with potential site supervisors about what you'll be able to do, what you're allowed to do, recognizing that at community colleges, oftentimes if you're working in a counseling department, you are never going to be able to do an ed plan one-on-one with a student, but you might be able to have like a session towards the end of the experience with the counselor and yourself co-leading that, and you might be in the driver's seat with the counselor observing and then jumping in when they need to sort of correct anything or add information that you might not know. So again, if you're at a 4-year institution or not in a counseling office at a community college, you may have a lot more ability to sort of jump in and do some different things, but it just will depend on what experience you're sort of looking at. One of the things that's back here on this website that I want to sort of point out is the Fieldwork Handbook. So again, that is already up here. It has all of the assignments for both practicum and field studies outlined here. I would encourage you to read it carefully and just spend some time with it. Share it with the potential site supervisor to verify that the experiences that you're needing for assignments are doable based upon your site, because if not, then you're going to be in a real bind. I'm going to stop sharing that page for now. So again, going back to just some pieces, all of the paperwork for fieldwork is done electronically. Every form is through dynamic forms on the Resource for Students site, or it's an email that you have to send to your site supervisor so that they initiate a form. But again, that's down the line. You must use your Cal Lutheran email with this system. You cannot use a personal email on this or any other forms. If you do, one, it's a violation of FERPA because it's an official form and we need you to use your Cal Lutheran email. But two, it's going to cause issues in the system itself because everything in dynamic forms is connected to your single sign-in. So that becomes really critical that you use your Cal Lutheran email. When applying for fieldwork, you also must have proof of valid student professional liability insurance that you have purchased. So you do have to purchase professional liability insurance to cover you in case something happens on site and you potentially get sued. We do not provide coverage for you as a program. You need to purchase that yourself. Typically, you can get reduced cost insurance through both your memberships. If you're a member of ACPA or NASPA, they have affiliate vendors that you can work with to get a discount code because of your professional associate membership. Typically it's under $30 for a policy that's like $1 million policy. And so that is a condition that is required, and you have to upload as a part of your fieldwork application the proof that you have your policy. And so before you go and try to submit your site or your fieldwork application, please make sure that you have that purchased. That's going to be really important. It will not, your application will not be able to move forward if you don't include that proof of policy. In terms of your site supervisor, as you find a site and as you find a site supervisor, you do need to make sure that they have a master's degree in counseling, student affairs, higher education, or a related field, and that they've had that degree for at least 2 years. You also need to make sure that your supervisor knows that they have to meet with you for regular supervision for at least once a week, typically for an hour, although we know that that doesn't always happen, to discuss your performance, your progress on projects, receive feedback, and also get information from them for your course assignments for class. So again, it's really important that they have at least, optimally an hour, but at least a half an hour every week, once a week, for you to be able to connect and meet with them. When you're attempting to locate a site, I really encourage you to think critically about the type of functional area that you're hoping to work in down the road. If you know that you have a strong interest in, let's say, career services, then choose something in that area. Don't just choose something because it's convenient, as that often will backfire given that your practicum and your field studies work should align with your professional goals and also help you gain critical experience to help you move forward. So think about it this way. You're doing 150 hours of on-site work at 2 different sites in 2 different offices. It's really basically 2 very long job interviews, right? If you are somebody who's well-liked and proved to be competent and there's a vacancy in that office, you're going to be encouraged to apply for that job. And even down the line, if they really remember liking working with you, they may sort of call you up out of the blue in a couple of years and say, hey, we have this position, we'd love for you to apply. So again, it only works to your benefit to make sure that these experiences that you do are going to be a good fit for you and that they align with sort of your end goals, right? Additionally, if they don't have a job, they're certainly going to be, if they like you, they're going to be looking out for you, and they're going to serve as references. They're going to send you jobs. They can help you connect in what we know is a really small field. So be strategic and be smart about where you're doing your work. From a technical side, once your application of Fieldwork goes in, it's going to go then electronically to your site supervisor for them to put in their information, and then it will come to me as the Fieldwork coordinator. I will review everything, and if everything looks good, I'm going to go ahead and approve it. Then from there, I send a message to the dean's office in the Graduate School of Education, and I ask our point person there to lift the registration hold for either practicum or field studies, so that way you can then register. You cannot go ahead when registration opens and just register for 528 or 535 yourself. If you do, that's a huge issue. It shouldn't be allowing you to do that in the first place. But if you have technical controls because you have access somehow as an employee, you can't just go ahead and register yourself and circumvent the system. So don't do that. But ultimately, once I send you an email to say you're clear to register, you can go ahead and then register for the class that you need. But I just want to make sure folks know that. If you're doing fieldwork in spring 2020, you can start accruing your hours for that work as early as January 2nd, but you can't do it any earlier. So if you train in December, you can't count those hours of training. We can only allow you to start accruing your hours as of January 2nd. For those of you doing summer field work, whether practicum or field studies, you can start counting your hours as early as June 1st, but no earlier. So keep those in mind in terms of how you're going to use your time and to complete the 150 hours. I will also say that we do allow you to continue to do an incomplete. So let's say for those of you doing summer practicum, summer is a shorter amount of time, so you might need more time to finish up your hours. And so you could spill into finishing up your hours in the fall semester. And if you had to enroll in field studies in the fall, you could still start field studies and start your hours in your other site and be just finishing up without a problem. We will allow you to do an in progress for the practicum and still be able to start with field studies. So it won't sort of keep you out of the loop or slow you down if you haven't finished your hours, but you do need to finish your hours shortly after the semester starts. If you have contacts in the area and you want to reach out to them to see if they'll take you on as an intern, that's great. Go right on ahead and ask them. But if you need recommendations or ideas about who to contact, you can be in touch with me, and I'm happy to set up an appointment to talk about that. Happy to do that via phone, in person, whatever you want to do. I'll give you some names, but ultimately it's your responsibility to find a site within the time frame provided. You can ask for an extension if need be, but ultimately you have until December 1st. So this gives you a lot of time over the next couple of months to try to find a site if you're particularly looking for spring. But I can't just sort of pick up the phone and say, hey, I need you to take on an intern, right? That's not I can't just pull that out of a magic hat. So it's really on you to make sure that you're doing that. If you are looking for an internship at Ventura College, you have to contact Dr. Pena as the Vice President of Student Affairs, and his office coordinates placements for all interns at Ventura College. So if you're looking at Ventura or VC, please contact Dr. Pena directly, and they coordinate that. If you're looking for an internship at Oxnard College, you have to contact Assistant Dean of Student Services, Leah Alcorn, and Leah's email is lalarcon@vccd.edu. And Leah is our point person for Oxnard. For internships at any of the Ventura College Community College District schools, so Moorpark, Ventura, and Oxnard, there's a separate internship agreement that you have to complete if you're working in an unpaid internship there. This takes some extra time to complete, so you'll want to work with me ahead of time to get that form and have it approved. But your fieldwork application has to be approved first. So if you're thinking about any of those three institutions, definitely make sure that you are connecting with me. Additionally, there are year-long internships that are out there. And so if you are doing a year-long internship, that's great, but you'll need to decide which semester you're going to do for credit. You can't do both a year-long internship and get it counted for both practicum and field studies. You have to choose one or the other. Additionally, if you have a full-time job or a part-time job where you are working in the field and you have a high degree of student contact, you can use your job for one of these experiences again. So you could choose either practicum or field studies. But again, when I have conversations with students, I really encourage you to be thoughtful about which one makes sense. So when is at work, if you're working full-time, what's the semester that is most busy for you? Try not to necessarily go out and do a different site in that semester, right? So be thoughtful about when you're choosing to use your job and why that makes sense for you. If you know that summer is a busier time for you, then maybe don't do practicum or field studies in the summer. Maybe adjust accordingly. If you know that spring is your busiest time, then okay, maybe your boss will give you a little bit more flexibility for you to be out of the office in the summer when things are a little bit less busy. So again, just be thoughtful in terms of which semester makes most sense. Again, will offer practicum in the spring. We will offer practicum in the summer. We do not offer practicum in the fall. So that is one thing that you just need to keep in mind. So you either will take practicum in spring, this coming spring, or in the summer. Field studies will be offered in the fall or the spring. So that's sort of how those two classes typically are structured. I know that we're at time and you have a panel. So what I'm going to say is if you have any specific email or if you have any specific questions, to just shoot me an email. If you want to, if it's a lengthy thing that we can't do back and forth on email, then I'm happy to set up an appointment. And again, I've recorded this. As soon as we're done, I'm going to upload it to YouTube and I will send it out to everybody as a link. So that way, if you need to sort of go back and refresh on what I said, it'll be there. But thank you so much. I'm sorry that technology wasn't working in our favor tonight, but hopefully we'll still get you the information and hopefully this was still useful. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Bye.
I wish you was in here. Come on in.